To understand the Knights Templar properly, we have to go beyond the myths and symbols and look at what they were in practice. Let's take a closer look at what life was for a Templar Knight, how he lived, what he wore, how he trained, what he believed in, and how the Order functioned at its core. This is what made the Order of the Temple such an efficient military machine. The Templar uniform was instantly recognizable across medieval Europe. Full knights wore white mantles marked with a red cross on the left shoulder, a symbol of martyrdom and their sacred duty. Sergeants and non-noble members wore darker cloaks, usually brown or black, depending on the region and resources. Clothing was practical: long tunics, woolen cloaks in winter, and linen underlayers. Templars didn't wear jewelry, gold, or decoration. Their appearance reflected the values of humility and unity. The typical Templar knight wore a male hauberk, a long chainmail shirt covering the torso and upper arms, usually extending to the knees. This was often worn over a padded gambeson. The head was protected by a mail coif, and during campaigns a large iron helmet known as a great helm. By the late 12th century this became box-shaped and enclosed. Their primary weapons included a straight double-edged sword, a lance for mounted charges, and a dagger. Templars also used shields, large and often kite-shaped, early on. Some units employed crossbows, but most knights focused on close combat, especially on horseback. Templar knights didn't fight alone, and they didn't rely on a single horse. Each knight was entitled to several horses, typically 1 or 2 war horses, and additional pack and riding horses. The order maintained stables and farriers to care for them. The war horse, often a destrier, was trained to fight and remain calm during battle. Templar cavalry tactics involved highly organized charges in formation. They used shock tactics, hitting enemy lines with precision, discipline, and weight. Not all members of the Templars were knights. In fact, the majority were support roles: squires, sergeants, cooks, grooms, and clerks. To become a knight, you had to be of noble birth, unmarried, and willing to surrender all titles and inheritance. Initiates were often placed under observation before being admitted fully into the Brotherhood. Templar life was rigidly structured. Days began and ended with prayer. Knights attended Mass multiple times a day. They trained in combat regularly: sword drills, riding, lance technique, and formation practice. But they also performed manual labor and administrative duties. There was no personal property. Meals were eaten in silence. Communication with outsiders, especially women, was limited or forbidden. Everything about the order was built to enforce unity, obedience, and endurance. The Templar Order had a clearly defined hierarchy. At the top was the Grand Master, the supreme commander who answered only to the Pope. Below him were senior officers, the Seneschal, Marshal, and Commander of the Kingdom of Jerusalem. There were also preceptors who managed Templar estates and outposts, and turcopoliers who led local auxiliary troops. Below them were the full knights, followed by sergeants, squires, chaplains, and servants. Each member had duties and strict accountability. The Rule of the Templars, a document inspired by the Rule of St. Benedict, governed every detail of daily life. Infractions were punished swiftly. A knight could lose his rank for disobedience, pride, or violence toward another brother. The discipline of the order was one of the reasons it became so trusted across Europe, by both the church and the nobility. Templars weren't just warriors in white robes. They were trained, organized, and committed to a system far greater than any one man. To understand their power, we must first understand their discipline.